Hello, this is Dr. Janice Love, and thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Have you ever been called a strong Black woman? Do you really know what that means and the impact it can have on your life? Well, stay tuned as we speak with our guest, Dr. Taunya Tinsley, about reimagining the strong Black woman. I can't wait. Now, we all know that this show is all about asking for a sister friend, and we are here every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we are meeting with a special guest every week, someone who can help you to be all that God created you to be. All right, I'm not sure what's going on. Noise here. Let me check what's going on. I'm getting this feedback. Let's figure out what's going on. Do you have anything going on with your sound or anything? Okay. All right. May hope that fixed it. All right. Okay. So we're here. See, look at the devil trying to mess up stuff already, because we are here to talk about, we are here asking for a sister friend. And today what we're going to talk about is reimagining the strong Black woman. Now, let me introduce you to our guest today. Our guest is a PhD. She's a D-Min. She's a LPC. She's a NCC. She's a LPCC. Now, that's a lot of letters behind your name, but she is the owner of Transitions Counseling Services, LLC. She is also the owner of Love and Basketball Ministries and Life Coaching. She does individual therapy, marriage and family therapy, group counseling. She is an ordained minister, and she was ordained at Mount Ararat. You're going to have to tell me what that is.
Mount Ararat.
Ararat Baptist Church in Pittsburgh. She is a scholar. She's a professor. She's a practitioner. She's a writer. She has a BA in business administration from Augsburg College in Minneapolis. She got her MA at the University of Iowa. Then she went on to get her doctorate as well. Let me tell you what her favorite scripture is. It is Micah 6:8. He has told you, O mortal, what is good and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. Again, she teaches professionals as a professor, and she does a lot of things in the church world. And again, this woman is amazing. So I am bringing to the stage Dr. Taunya Tinsley. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Janice. I am excited to be here tonight. Hello, everyone who's watching and those who will watch the replay. Thank you so much for the introduction and having me tonight.
Yeah, so we met years ago because I ended up being on your show, the Talking with Dr. T show, years ago.
Absolutely.
But I have followed you and just love all the amazing things you're doing. But tonight we're going to be talking about this strong Black woman. So many times I hear this coming from others. Oh, you're so strong, or how are you so strong? Where does this whole image of the strong Black woman come from in the first place?
Well, it's interesting because I'm doing some more research and I really am trying to create a training and understanding for the people that I work with and for training counselors. And so, doing a little bit of research, I came across an article, and obviously, there's more research out there. But let me just share this little snippet from this article that was written by Godbolt et al. In 2022. And the article is titled Strong Black Women Linking Stereotypes, Stress, and Overeating Among a Sample of Black Female College Students. But I like what she said. A common stereotype placed on Black women in society is the strong Black woman label. During slavery, various stereotypes arose from the mistreatment of Black women that portrayed the image of being overly sexual, overly overbearing, and loud. Fast forward, the strong black woman label can have positive and negative connotations. The use of the label implies that black women have no choice but to be fearless, ambitious, and hardworking, thereby resulting in celebrating strength, self sufficiency, and resilience. The strong black woman label is offered as a compliment, but enacted so as to mask the unfair burden put on black women. In this way, the label obscures the reality of the structural forces that keep black women down, forces that could otherwise be addressed by structural and policy changes, and directs attention instead to black women themselves. Being a strong black woman is a necessary response to a racist society in which survival requires strength. So here it is, we're talking about coming from slavery to a society that we're dealing with oppression, racism. The strong black woman provides African American women with a blueprint on how to appropriately perform their intersected race and gender identity. However, research is beginning to uncover the unfair burden that the label may place on Black women and its effects on stress and their overall health. So I think it's just coming from slavery and it's been going on for years and years, but we're having more research, we're having more women talk about and being vulnerable and sharing their experiences today in the workplace, in the home, and so I think it's just something that has been building up and building up. It's a positive. We as Black women are resilient.
So I again have been reading some things, and what I have learned is that back in slavery days, they thought that, black women didn't need medication to have babies, that black women could work twice as hard as a mule or whatever, and all these things that put that label on black women. And so how did it go from being a label that was meant to be negative to us taking on that in today's day and time, and it actually not being something necessarily positive, but something that can be a detriment to us? How did it go from one place to the other?
I think it was passed down. And so we think about slavery, right? Women had
Mhm.
babies, no medication, women being sexually abused, women having to watch their children and their husbands being beat and not being able to say anything publicly, right? And just having to push it down and keep going. And then their children see that, and the mothers, to protect their children, say, don't say anything, just push it down. So it's kind of like this idea. A little girl is cooking with her mother. Mother pulls out the pan, and the little girl says, "Mommy, why are we using this pan?" And she says, "I don't know. Let me go ask my mother why we're using it." Goes and asks her mother, "Why are we using this pan?" And the mother says, "Well, I don't know. Let's go ask my mother." It gets passed down, and it's unspoken behavior, but it's also this behavior that says we need to protect ourselves in this oppressive society, and we need to protect ourselves from what's happening out there so that we can keep functioning and taking care of our family.
Okay, so when we think about strong back woman label, I remember watching Soul Food. Remember the scene in Soul Food where the two sisters were talking, and one sister says to the other, "Mom said you were always the strong one." And so many times I have been told that I am strong, but there's plenty of days I don't want to be strong, and however it's defined, I'm not sure I want to be labeled that superwoman that has no feelings, that will just take stuff and deal with it without getting some help sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's go back. Let's break it down for a second. The word strong. When somebody says you need to be the strong woman, you need to be the strong person in your family. The Webster Dictionary says strong is having the power to move heavy weights and perform other physical tasks. Having the power. to move heavy weights, have the ability to withstand great force or pressure. So when I think about that and I think about all this weight on our shoulder, right? We're putting everybody else's weights on our shoulder and it's pushing us down, but yet we got to keep our own stuff in there. And so it keeps pushing us down and pushing us down. And what I would like to suggest is that we need to reimagine, reinterpret what it means to be strong. So, in an article that I was reading, uh, she talked about the strong black woman is this obligation to manifest strength. The author is Valerie Brown. Obligation to manifest emotions. Just keep pushing those emotions down. Resistance to being vulnerable or dependent. Determination to succeed despite limited resources. The strong black woman has an obligation to help others even when I'm empty. It is the excessive embodiment of these characteristics that can interfere with physical, psychological, spiritual well being. So when I think about when I go and work out, the goal is to become stronger. So you want to have weights, but you have to take a break. You have to build up to it. It's a process. And so that's why they talk about taking days off and then, giving your body a break so that you can rebuild those muscles that are torn. But the strong black woman, where do we take a break? Where do we rebuild what we have pushed down?
Exactly. I love it when you mute for a second. I love it when you put it in those terms because what that says is taking the physical out of it. Because I can barely lift up a good 60 pounds on certain machines, right? And so when you think about it from a total physical perspective, then that makes sense why we have been labeled the strong black woman. Again, if you take it back from slavery days. But if you bring it up to today's time, where we are laden with spiritual challenges, emotional challenges, physical challenges, then it's way too much for us to handle. So if there's a woman who's wearing this as a banner, what would you say to her? I'm asking for a friend that wears "I'm a strong black woman" as a banner. What would you say to her?
I would say it's okay to have a banner, but sometimes put that banner down. It's okay to have a cape, but sometimes even Superman had to go back and be Clark Kent, right? So it is okay to say, you know what? I am not strong today. I need a break. That's where we have to reimagine, to be able to allow us to be vulnerable, to feel our emotions and say, you know what? I need to set some boundaries for me. I have my bottled water here, but if we imagine this as a Pepsi bottle, we're dealing with family. We're dealing with spiritual warfare. We're dealing with work, right? All of the stuff we have to deal with. And then we're told, be strong, take care of all of these other people. What happens when we take the lid off the bottle? It explodes on
Mhm.
people around us, right? Now, if we don't take the lid off, but we know it's being shook, it's imploding internally and it's impacting us in terms of physical and wellness and mental health and spiritual. But if anybody remembers their science class or anybody who lives in the cold states, if we leave a can of Pepsi out in the frozen in the car and it gets frozen, boy, we got a car to clean up because it's going to explode on its own.
Mhm.
So when we talk about reimagining the black woman, let's turn the lid and let some of that out. So put your banner down, take your cape off for a minute, and just take care of yourself and turn the lid on that cap.
I love it. I love it. So one of our guests has stated that sometimes there's just so many things going on. I have no choice but to keep going. And so, what would we tell her that? How should she deal with this?
I would say when we talk about choices, we always have a choice. We have a choice. So if we have a choice to even not making a decision is a choice. So
Hmm.
I would say choose yourself first. I think about that metaphor, we can't fill from an empty cup.
Hmm.
We can't keep running because our cup is going to continue to be empty. And how can we run on empty? There are going to be some consequences later on physically that if you don't take this as a sign, a flag to say, I gotta slow down. I'm challenging people right now. My cup is right now half full. And if I give everybody what's in my cup, I have nothing left. So let's change. We can't fill others from an empty cup. We have to fill others from an overflowing cup. So slow down. It is okay to say, I have to slow down to fill myself up so that I can keep going. Because if we don't slow down, there are going to be some long term effects on our physical health.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So trying to be that strong Black woman, as the way it's being defined, is a stressor. And we know what stress does to us. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we have good stress, but then there's negative stress. I want you all to think about when we have stress, it releases cortisol in our brain. Too much cortisol is going to impact, and I know this is very technical, but we have serotonin in our brain and dopamine. Too much cortisol is going to impact our mood, our motivation, but also, I was reading from the American Heart Association. Long term or chronic stress can cause higher levels of inflammation in the body that contribute to increases in plaque buildup in the arteries that can lead to such problems as coronary artery disease. It could also lead to a heart attack, abnormal heart rhythms, heart failures. Chronic stress is a constant sense of feeling pressure and overwhelm for a long period of time. So when we talk about stress, oftentimes when I get clients at my private practice for counseling that come to me, their primary care physician is saying, I cannot find a diagnosis of what's going on. What's going on in your life with stress that you need to deal with? Because stress can manifest in our body psychosomatic. So we talk about the heart disease, high blood pressure, backaches, body aches, and you're trying to figure out what that's coming
Anything.
from. Anything, right? And so, yeah, that's the stress on the physical health.
You're talking my language because I majored in biopsych, and we know that really up to 95% of physical illness is due to stress. We already know that. And anything that you think about that we're dealing with, I know in my own life when I experienced Graves' disease, it was stress.
Yeah,
I was trying to do too much.
yeah.
So I want to take this to the Bible here for a second. So many times we look at the Proverbs 31 woman, and it talks about how she never let her candle go out. She's burnt, she's up all night doing stuff. She's making sure she takes care of her family. She does all this. Do we sometimes think that being strong, being this strong Black woman is godly?
Well, I understand the Proverbs 31 woman, but when we talk about godly, whether it's in the Old Testament or the New Testament, God is saying take care of your temple as well, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
be this Proverbs 31 woman. I might go to what Jesus said to the man at the pool of Bethesda. Do
mm-hmm.
you want to be made well? Do you want to be made whole? So whole wellness, that is the Greek word sozo that's connected with shalom. And we know shalom is peace. So
Mm-hmm.
we are going to be this Proverbs 31 woman. We have to be well. We have to be whole. We have to have internal peace. And I would add to the Proverbs 31, I would add Psalms 139. I
All
would
right.
add the whole book of Psalms 139, but I would also say 13 and 14. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. God didn't create us to be broke down, right? And then
No,
we also know in Ephesians, he says, we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. If we're broke down, how are we going to do good works?
exactly. Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about being able to say no. Now, I look at my own life, and even when I look at your schedule, you have an amazing schedule. I mean, you all might not know right now, she is out of town in where are you in
Minnesota.
Minnesota, where it is snowing like crazy.
Absolutely.
She earlier today, she eulogized her uncle, and she's got to get back to Pittsburgh, and you have an amazingly busy schedule. How do you manage that balance. How do you manage that self-care to be able to take care of yourself when we have so many things going on, when we are doing so many things for the kingdom, right?
Yes.
How do you manage that?
Well, you just said, for one, I got to say no, right? And so it's a blessing in disguise because I thought I had to teach tomorrow night and Tuesday night. It's spring break. And I said, thank you, Lord Jesus. I'm not filling that schedule in with anything. That time is going to be for me. So I am saying no. Tomorrow is a rest day. Tuesday is a travel and a rest day. It is hard. I had somebody reach out to me and texting me multiple times, and I'm here in Minnesota, and I finally had to send a text to say, listen, I have received your text. I'm not ignoring you. I'm asking if you could just give me grace for a couple days. I am home with a family situation, and I will get back to you. So I will start off by saying, can you just give me grace for a couple of days? But I also know if I'm going to be helping other people, I have to take care of me and I have to model it as well. So I talked about it, clean eating. My dad said to me, what do you mean by clean eating? I said, okay, Dad, I mean healthy eating. He was like, yeah, because I was wondering if you go out to eat, if it's dirty or something, but healthy eating, right? I work out because when we talk about the chemicals in our brain, working out helps to reduce that cortisol and helping to feel better. So I say no. I have to set boundaries, right? And boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are for self-care. And I was sharing with somebody the other day, as it says, boundaries are for you, and it becomes difficult for other people that benefited from you not having boundaries before, right? And so now by setting boundaries, they no longer can take advantage and benefit from you. So you have to learn to say no. It's a process. It takes 30 to 40 days to form a new habit, right? So just practice it. Set a goal that I'm going to say no. I also say, okay, if you can't say no, here's what I would like you to say. If somebody comes to you and asks you something, I think that's a great idea. I appreciate you asking me. Can I get back to you in a couple days with an answer on that? So if you can't say no, just ask for a little bit more time so it's easier for you to email them back or call you back and be able to say, this is not a good time right now. I have to say no, but can you think about me at another time?
I love it. So the number one reason why I hear that a lot of Black women do not work out is because they don't have time.
Yes.
Will you help my sister friend out and tell her how to make time for exercise?
Absolutely. So you may have to adjust your schedule, but redefine what you mean by working out, because you can just go walking if you have pets. I have 2 dogs. So for me, in between clients or in between doing some writing, I say, come on, dogs, let's go out and walk. And I take them for a long walk because it helps them, but it's beneficial for me. So just going walking. Over the pandemic, I got a Peloton, which I love the Peloton. There are workouts that you can do that are only 10 minutes long and you're getting a workout. You can do a 15-minute workout, but redefine what you're thinking about working out. I also know that there are women that will say, oh, I don't want to deal with my hair, or there's just different things. Think about your health long-term benefits of doing some kind of exercise 3 or 4 times a week. So just making time for you and being intentional. So going back to the man at the pool of Bethesda, he was sitting at the pool because he kept saying, nobody's putting me in. Jesus said, get up and take your mat and walk.
Exactly.
You gotta be intentional, right? So you gotta be intentional in setting some time aside for you, because if you don't take care of you, who will?
And the other thing is, if you get sick and you get down, look at where your time is spent then.
Yes.
So let's talk about how, again, that look, I lost my train of thought, but the I wanted to ask, how can a woman who is struggling in this area, what's the first step to reimagining what the strong Black woman is?
I would say the first step is increasing your own self-awareness, and admit it to yourself that I am dealing with some consequences to this strong Black woman. You don't have to tell anybody else. Admit it to yourself. Pray about it. Admit it to God. Talk about it with Him. Talk about it with a close friend so you can get comfortable saying it out loud. You can stand in your mirror and say, you know what? You're dealing with this strong Black woman syndrome. And just practice. So the first step is self-awareness. The second step is just recognizing. I would say everyone take your journal out, take a piece of paper out, and do an inventory. How is your mental health? We all have mental health. Take inventory on your spiritual health. Take inventory on your emotional health. We as Black women, okay, we go back and we're dealing with the intersection of gender and race, right?
Mhm.
There is this thing, Dr. Janice, you and I talked about this before,
Mhm.
race-based traumatic stress, racial battle fatigue. That's that weight that's pushing us down.
Mhm.
So recognize that these are things that are equal opportunity issues, and we are not immune to dealing with these race-based, gender-based traumatic issues. And so take inventory to how these experiences out there are impacting you, and be honest with yourself. Allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, and then once you can do it with yourself, now you say, how can I achieve self-care and taking care of myself?
Exactly. I finally, my brain kicked in there for a second. I took a what I call a frequent flyer trip. But the question I wanted to ask, or the statement I wanted to make, was that strong Black women ask for help when they need it.
Yes. Yes.
We can't bear, there's certain burdens you just can't carry by yourself. When you need that help, you have to be willing to ask for that help. So talk about how women should approach, where should they get the help from?
Absolutely. Well, you can first of all they could start with you and I. If they're listening to this and saying, "Hey, I need help," reaching out to you and I and saying, "I need a resource in the state, in the city that I'm at. Where can I start?" Then we will be able to give you referrals with therapists, psychologists, licensed professional counselors, licensed clinical social workers who integrate the spiritual and Christian perspective, if that's something you want, somebody who is culturally competent, if that's something you're concerned about. So do not let your own internalized stigmas be a barrier to your help seeking behaviors, because there are people out there that are willing to help. I think it's important. Sometimes people will say, well, let me go to my medical doctor first. That is great. Be honest with your medical doctor. Your
Mhm.
medical doctor will talk to you about resources that are out there and collaborations. Because those of us that are clinicians, we engage in collaboration of care with your primary care physician. So we are
Mhm.
working together for your own wellness, but also your church. Many churches now, we have pastoral care and
Mhm.
counseling. We have health and wellness ministries. And whether it's going to the pastor and asking who I should talk to, but there are those different resources out there. So starting with us, getting help with a clinician, or going to the church as well.
And the point is, don't be afraid to ask for help, and ask for help. I know there have been just so many times in my life when I was going through various things where I had to ask for help, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is actually strength. When
Yes.
when you know that you need help and you have the courage to ask for it, that is a sign of strength.
Yes. So let's go back to what we said are the characteristics of the strong Black woman: resistance to being vulnerable,
Hmm.
re, being resistance to being dependent.
Hmm.
Here's the one thing I think people need to understand: asking for help doesn't mean you have to depend on that person. I think it's really important. God designed us to be in relationship. He didn't design us to be on an island alone. So it's not being dependent and it's not being independent of someone. It's being interdependent. We're a team working together.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Wow, we've had a lot. We've been talking, and we've had some good nuggets that I hope that women are listening to. But I want to be able to tell people how to find you. But first, I'm going to run a little commercial, and we're going to come back and talk about how how people can find you. Okay. Hello, this is Dr. Janice R. Love, and would you like to be my special guest on Asking for a Sister Friend? Then I invite you to visit pearlsperfectedinstitute.com and visit the About page. We'd love to see how you can help a sister friend. All right, that's a little something, something I decided to throw in there. Because again, if you would like to be a guest on our show, definitely visit pearlsperfectedinstitute.com and I invite you. I am booking now almost all the way up to August. So I am excited that I am going to be able to introduce so many women who are doing such wonderful things to help other women, whether they're coaches, counselors, or therapists. I am just excited. All right, so let's talk about how people can find you because I know there are many ways they can find you. So first of all, talk about your counseling services that you provide.
Okay, so I am a licensed professional counselor, PhD level. I'm nationally certified. I'm licensed in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio. And my counseling practice is Transitions Counseling Services. And my website is on the screen there. So I provide counseling services. And with counseling, we're really kind of focusing on how a person can transform their life. How can you manage transitions in your life? I come from this stance that early experiences impact current experiences. So, as a counselor, is there any unfinished business that we need to finish for you to fully live? I said this to a group of women yesterday, but I want you to think about Jesus Christ died on the cross for us to live. What patterns of behavior in your life must die in order for you to live? And so counseling is to help you with those pattern of behaviors that you might need to strengthen, redefine, and reinterpret.
Oh, I love it. All right, so that is your counseling service. And then this Love and Basketball Ministries. I've just been so impressed by that. I know you had this basketball career and all this stuff, and you weave in principles of the game, especially with couples. I love it. So talk about your Love and Basketball Ministries.
Absolutely. So, and when I went to seminary, part of the process at seminary, if we're going to minister and help other people, we had to really understand our spiritual journey and our spiritual autobiography. And as I wrote my spiritual autobiography, one, I found that sports was a self protective factor for me. Gave me the gift of sports, but He used sports to keep me. When we look at the Old Testament and New Testament, God uses concepts of sport to strengthen people's faith. Paul talks about sports metaphors. And so that's when I realized, okay, how do we use the concept of sports to help people to develop and grow? Additionally, as part of my experience in seminary, I really wanted, so my specialties are working with athletes, but also we live in a world, if you don't like sports, you're going to be inundated with sports. We're dealing with the NCAA, March Madness, women's basketball, men's basketball. We just had the Super Bowl. So how can we use this idea of sports in leadership? So I developed Love and Basketball Ministries to help churches, help organizations with leadership development, bringing in those concepts. During the pandemic, when I was working with many of the churches, I had pastors and congregants outside of the states that I was licensed asking for help, but they were wanting more coaching, right? Mm-hmm. And so I added the coaching piece to Love and Basketball Ministries and Life Coaching Services. Coaching is to help people where they are now to be able to get to where they are going. So the whole idea with coaching is coming up with a game plan for you to get to the next quarter, get to the next half, to be able to transform and self-actualize in who you want to be. So with Love and Basketball Ministry, I do leadership training, but I also do life coaching, transitions, focusing on relational coaching.
Okay. And you've written a book. I love your Four Quarters book. Tell us about that, where they can find that.
So I want to make sure that I really focus on the positive aspects of being a strong Black woman, but we also have to really be aware of the negative consequences of being a strong Black woman. If you're having low energy, feeling hopeless, less patient with people, your Pepsi bottle is just kind of starting to shake, not being able to sleep, insomnia, feeling burned out, difficulty concentrating, you're having strained relationships with people that are close to you, reduced performance. These are all signs of the consequences of the strong Black woman. These are signs that your Pepsi bottle is shaking. So I would challenge you to really take inventory of what's happening with you. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and reach out for help and ask for help because you are not alone.
Amen. Amen. And while I have you here, since you are one of the therapists and counselors or professionals who has a client learning portal, I wanted you to just talk about why it is that you want a client learning portal.
So, as part of my Love and Basketball Ministries and life coaching services, um, one, I know that everybody is busy. And so I want people to be able to um, reach out to help for me based on their own time. We have a portal where there's going to be worksheets. You'll have one-on-one coaching time with me, but these are times where you can do the work on your own time and that it fits into your schedule. And so the learning portal is, think about going to a conference and you're in a session with me, but now you have access to it 24/7 on the portal. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about this.
Yes, yes, yes. So if you don't know anything about what the Client Learning Portal is, then visit pearlsperfectinstitute.com because, again, we are shaking up how mental health and wellness entrepreneurs share knowledge, helping clients to learn it by heart for lasting positive change. So if you want to learn more about that, please visit me at pearlsperfectinstitute.com. All right, we are going to go ahead and get out of here. Remember that people learn from one another, just as iron sharpens iron. Proverbs 27:17, the Good News Translation. And you have definitely sharpened my iron today. I really appreciate you. I wish you safe travels going back home. Hopefully
Thank
that snow doesn't get too busy. But hey, if anything gets canceled, you get to enjoy a snow day, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so hang on. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to run the credits and we're going to get out of here. But again, thank you so much, Dr. Tinsley,
And
for
thank you
being
for
my
having
guest
me.
on Asking for a Sister Friend. All right.